Hello college football fans, and welcome to this week's edition of Extra Points, a collaboration between Delphi Bracketology and Student Union Sports. This week we are going to be bringing you Championship Week, the week when all the big games are going down. These games find out who comes out on top of their divisions. I look at these games as a way to shape up the playoffs. How do you look at these games?
I think it's a huge week, Evan. I think this is what college football fans are looking forward to. You have 5 championship games, 4 of which are going to have major impact on the college football playoff. And it's a great weekend if you're a college football fan. So I think there's going to be some big games, big plays, and a lot to be determined.
All right, now we send it off to some of our playoffs.
This is Joe and Jameson, and we're going to be talking to you about the college football playoffs.
We'll start with Alabama. After Alabama's 26-14 loss to Auburn, their regular season is over. They were able to pick up 2 wins against ranked opponents, but their overall schedule was weak when compared to other playoff hopefuls. Alabama will be depending on luck this week to see whether or not they can sneak into that number 4 spot.
Next, we move on to Clemson and Miami. These two teams have had almost identical seasons. Both have picked up 2 top 25 wins while getting upset by unranked opponents. They play each other this week in the ACC Championship. This will pretty much be the same as an elimination game, with the winner going on to the playoffs.
Okay, now we go to Oklahoma and TCU. These two teams play in the Pac12 Championship. Oklahoma has 3 top 25 wins, one of those being TCU earlier in the year. TCU, on the other hand, has only 1 top 25 win. Both teams suffered losses to Iowa State. Oklahoma looks to improve their resume, but they still have a chance to make the playoffs if they lose on Saturday. TCU doesn't seem to have the resume to make the playoffs, as 2 losses and don't have many big wins.
In the SEC Championship game, we will have Auburn and Georgia. Auburn won the matchup earlier in the year, giving Georgia their only loss. 3 top 25 wins and 2 losses have come against top 25 teams as well. Georgia has 2 top 25 wins. Consider this game an elimination game as well, with the winner getting a berth in the playoffs.
Finally, we have Wisconsin and Ohio State. Wisconsin will finally get a chance to prove themselves against a highly ranked Ohio State team who might not have star QB JT Barrett after a collision with a cameraman. If Wisconsin wins, they will be in. If Ohio State can pull through, the committee will have a hard decision to make whether Ohio State can pull through, then they will then have 3 top 25 wins, but also still have 2 losses, including a blowout at the hands of Iowa. That's all from us. Back to the studio.
And with that, we send it off to Colt and Jordan, who are taking a hard look at the big games down south with Clemson versus Miami in the ACC Championship.
Thanks, guys. Jordan and Colt here covering the 2017 ACC Championship and this is no ordinary ACC Championship game. With both teams still having a hope to make a playoff, this is a must-win for both teams. I'm going to be talking about the Clemson Tigers and the key for them to win the game. Jordan here will be covering the Miami, who is coming off a horrible loss to Pittsburgh. So if we look between the last meeting between these two teams, Clemson beat them 58-0 in 2015. It's a horrible loss for Miami, so we're seeing if they can come off this and make it a competitive game. Clemson has been dominant on defense side of the ball this year. Dorian O'Daniel's leading the team in tackles with 80 on the year. A key player for the Tigers is Celine Farrell, who is a whopping 8.5 sacks on the year with 2 forced fumbles. I expect to see him step up and pick up a sack or 2. The offense is led by their versatile quarterback, Kelly Bryant. He can either run with the ball or throw the ball to one of his favorite receivers. One of his favorite targets is Hunter Renfrow, who has 50 catches on the year. Overall, I expect to see a dominant performance from Clemson's defense and maybe take over the infamous turnover chain that Miami wears. Jordan, what do you have for us on Miami?
Miami has been a great team all year and has had one huge loss this season to Pittsburgh, a game that should have been a blowout. But can Miami bounce back and hopefully get back in the top 4? Now the offense side for Miami. Quarterback Malik Rozier was 11 for 24 through the air with 187 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. He also was a leading rusher for the Canes. Miami looks to throw the ball, and for the defense side, Miami is going to be looking to shake the turnover chain. So will Miami be able to bounce back from their devastating loss from last week? Back to you guys at the panel.
Thanks for that report, guys. I really hope that Miami can rebound and give Clemson a good game. I look for Clemson to be favored here, and with their outstanding defense and with their overall record, I think Clemson comes out on top. What do you think?
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I'm definitely going to have to take Clemson over Miami. They just got handed a big loss versus Pittsburgh, and I really don't see them coming back from that.
Okay, now we're off to Jaden and Dave with the preview of the Big Ten Championship matchup.
Thanks, guys. Wisconsin and Ohio State will battle in Indianapolis for the Big Ten Championship. This is a must-win for Wisconsin in order to make it into the playoffs. Wisconsin has answered some of its critics by defeating 2 top 25 teams and shutting out Minnesota in the last 3 weeks of the regular season. Wisconsin has really improved its run defense in the last month, allowing just a total of 216 yards rushing for the entire month of November. The Badgers are also second in the nation in scoring defense, allowing just 12 points per game. On offense, Wisconsin will continue to rely on its run game. Freshman Jonathan Taylor has rushed for over 1,800 yards this season, behind their massive offensive line. Quarterback Alex Hornibrook has kept defenses from loading up the box against the run by throwing 21 touchdowns. However, he has been prone to turnovers, throwing 13 interceptions this year. If the Badgers can control the ball with the run game and avoid turnovers, they can knock off the Buckeyes. What do you have for us on Ohio State, Jaden?
Back in 2014, when the Ohio State Buckeyes faced the Wisconsin Badgers in the Big Ten Championship game, the Buckeyes destroyed the Wisconsin Badgers 59-0, and I'm expecting another blowout victory in 2017. The Buckeyes have just come off of a win of their rival Michigan Wolverines, exceeding the win streak to 3 games. I expect JT Barrett, with himself being a senior leader on this 10-2 Buckeyes team, to have a huge game, despite lingering MCL pain in his knee. JT has thrown for 2,700 yards this year with 33 touchdowns. Now on to the defensive side of the ball. This decent defense is led by Damon Webb, who has 53 tackles and 3 interceptions on the season. This defense's front line is one of the best in the nation, and I think they will dominate the Badgers' huge offensive line and get at quarterback Alex Hornibrook and stop the run. If the defense could stop Jonathan Taylor from running and force Alex Hornibrook to pass the ball, I think the Buckeyes will come out with this win, making their chance at the college football playoffs a reality.
All right, back to you guys.
Thanks for that, guys. I'm going to have to go with Wisconsin in this one. They're going to come out with a huge intensity, and trust me, they're hungry for that playoff spot. I don't think that Ohio State will be able to hold that energy throughout the game. The game might stay close in the first half, but I'm telling you, Wisconsin wants it bad.
Not so fast, young blood. I think you're totally wrong here on this one. I think Ohio State is focused. They think they belong in the Final Four, and when they're focused, they come out to play. And so I'm looking for Ohio State to defeat Wisconsin and slip into the playoffs. Now we're going to go to Catherine and Jordan for a little bit of update on the SEC Championship.
Georgia and Auburn are going to battle it out for the SEC Championship, and even though they already played once and Auburn won, I see Auburn pulling out another win in this game. They were playing better than anyone in the country, coming off a big win against Georgia, and then an even bigger win last week against Alabama at home. I think Auburn knows that the college football playoff berth is on the line and is able to pull this out against a very talented Georgia team.
The Georgia Bulldogs have been a great team all year, with 1 loss in the season and trying to get in the playoff race. The offensive side for Georgia, quarterback Jake Fromm was 12 for 16 with 224 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns on the day. And Sonny Michael had 84 rushing yards and a touchdown. Will Auburn be able to stop the offense for the Bulldogs? Georgia's defense had 1 interception and 1 sack. If Georgia wants to win, they have to get pressure on the Auburn quarterbacks. So who will win this rematch? Back to you guys.
Thanks, guys. It's looking like it's going to be a great matchup, but I'm going to have to go with Auburn, pulling out one after a huge upset over Alabama.
I have to agree with you. I believe Georgia's going to be focused, but I just think Auburn has found their niche. They lost 2 games early. I think they finish it off with an SEC championship. Okay, now we send it over to Joe and Elijah to see what's happening in the Big 12 championship game.
Considering nobody in the Big 12 knows how to play defense, this game is going to come down to who can outplay the other team on offense. Oklahoma routed TCU in the first game of the season. Watch to see if TCU can get revenge in this high-stakes game.
There are a lot of good players in this game, on offense at least. Oklahoma's quarterback Baker Mayfield would look to add to his season totals, as he has 37 touchdowns and over 4,000 yards of offense. Also, you want to keep an eye out on some big plays this game. Oklahoma wide receiver Marquise Brown got loose earlier in the year for an 87-yard receiving touchdown. And Oklahoma running back Abdul Adams holds the team record for the longest play of the year after he ran for a 99-yard touchdown against Baylor.
That's all from us. Back to the studio.
Great reporting out there, guys. It looks like it's shaping up to be a high-scoring shootout between two great offenses. Personally, I'm going to have to take Oklahoma for the fact that TCUD is going to have a very hard time stopping the great air attack from Heisman hopeful Baker Mayfield.
I love Baker Mayfield. He's a competitor. I'd want him on my team, whether he makes bad gestures or not. My suggestion is Baker throw touchdown passes, don't grab body parts, and everything will be fine. I think he's an outstanding player, and I really like this Oklahoma team. Now we're sending it off to Joe and Michael, who will share some insight with us on the Pac12 Championship.
So for this week, we are covering the Pac12 Championship, and USC will be playing Stanford on December 1st at Levi Stadium. The last time USC played Stanford in the Pac12 Championship was back in 2015 when the Cardinals came out victorious.
Stanford will rely on potential Heisman winner Bryce Love for the run game, as well as quarterback KJ Costello through the air. He scored 4 touchdowns last week versus Notre Dame. USC will look to quarterback Josh Darnold as Trojans try to become the first Pac-12 South team ever to win the Pac-12 championship game since it started back in 2011. Now back to you guys.
Seems like this game is going to go under the radar, but truly going to be a great matchup. I have Stanford pulling out the win, but it could truly go either way.
I agree with you. Sorry to interrupt. I agree with you on Stanford. I think what they did to Notre Dame is telling. I think the running back Love is outstanding, and I think Stanford wins this game.
And after that, we send it off to Joe Lamers, who shows us how to use a remote controller.
Hey, this is Joe Lamers bringing you how to use the remote. Knowing how to use the remote control is a big part of it. I suggest if you have grandparents or anybody over 60 that does not know how to use the remote, tape the buttons they don't need to use. That way they can't mess it up and switch the channel right before the most important play of the game. If you know how to use it, you better start switching channels all the time so you know what's going on in each game. Back to you guys.
Seems like some great advice there, Joe, and I might have to try some of them out myself.
I can't believe it. Taping the channels for the older people so they don't switch off the good games. That was outstanding advice. We also have some advice on food with Jonas Brown. Jonas, what advice can you give us?
Who needs a single food for the big games? My family crowds around 3 TVs, and they have a variety of food, which is basically a buffet in my house. That consists of 10 bags of chips, different types, and up to 24 pizzas with wings and sauce. And we go through probably 25 bottles of pop, which is a party at my place.
Holy cannoli. That is a ton of food, but I bet it's a great time with family and friends. What do you think about that?
I eat. Look at me. That would be a great place for me. Pizzas and wings and soda. I mean, that's a great afternoon. So, sounds good. Thanks, Jonas.
And with that, we send it off to Mr. Gilbert, who is covering a very special game this week with Army versus Navy. We'll send it out to him with traditions.
Thanks, guys. In this tradition segment, we're going to talk about the Army and Navy game. On December 9th, Army and Navy will meet for the 118th time in football. This is one of the greatest rivalries in all of college sports. But unlike some other rivalries, these combatants are brothers in arms after the game. To show the mutual respect between the teams, after the game, players from both sides join in singing the alma maters for both schools. Also, unlike most other rivalry games, this game has rarely been played on campus. This game is traditionally played at a neutral site. This season's game, as well as the next 3, will be played in Philadelphia. To commemorate the 20th anniversary of 9/11, the 2021 game will be played in New York. This is truly a bucket list game for any college football fan to see. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Dave. The Army-Navy game is actually not being played this week, but it's a week later, but we're covering it in this edition of Extra Points. We really respect what all of our men and women of the service and all service agencies do, and this game represents the best of our military, and we hope that it's a well-fought game, and it is definitely a game that I would like to go see. Now we're sending it over to Garrett Thompson, who's actually on scene in Philadelphia for the Army-Navy game.
Junior Garrett Thompson here, reporting for Bracketology Game Day, where they sent me to Philadelphia this week for the matchup of Army and Navy. This game is always famed and well respected. Both teams usually sport new, slick uniforms for the game. This year, Navy is wearing their Blue Angels uniform to tribute to the U.S. Navy's Flight Corps group, which is a well-respected group. Now, Army never disappoints in their uniforms either, even though they have not released what jersey they will be wearing. This game will be won in the trenches, as both teams don't like to pass the ball. So, whoever can control the ground game will control the game.
Thanks for that, Garrett. It's great to see you down there in Philadelphia. I hope the weather stays great for this game, and it's shaping up to be a great one.
Excellent week ahead of us, Evan. What game are you looking forward to, and what's your upset pick of the week?
I'm looking forward to Auburn versus Georgia. I want to see what Georgia can do against Auburn, and if Auburn can have the gas to go against them after they just had a big win against Alabama. For my upset of the week, I'm going to have to take Stanford versus USC. I feel like it's going to be a very tight match, and it can go either way, but I'm just feeling Stanford in this matchup. You?
You know, I'm looking forward to the SEC matchup. I think it's probably the best conference, and I think seeing if Georgia wants to have a little revenge and get back in the playoff, I'm going to be looking forward to watching that game. The Big Ten's also interesting because it's local here. I don't know if it's an upset in the Big Ten if Wisconsin loses. I'm worried a little bit about TCU upsetting Oklahoma and giving maybe Alabama another shot to get in. But nonetheless, it's great college football, and we're looking forward to our next video, which on Extra Points will preview all of the bowl games, including the championship. So for Evan, this is Brian Tonsoni and Delphi Bracketology. This is Championship Week Extra Points. Thank you to Student Union Sports for all the support that they do. Listen to us each week for a little bit of college football. See you next week.